Welcome to the Jewish Democratic Council of America's emergency briefing on Israel. I'm Haley Soifer, CEO of JDCA, which is the voice and political home of Jewish voters in support of Democrats who share our values, such as defending democracy, justice, equality, freedom, and of course, support of Israel. Such Democrats include our distinguished speakers today: Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, House Democratic Leader Hakeem Jeffries, and Congresswoman Kathy Manning and Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Last week, we gathered as a community in response to the horrific terrorist attack perpetrated by Hamas. We are still grieving alongside Israelis for the 1,400 lives lost and praying for the safety of the 199 hostages taken by Hamas, as well as the innocent civilians who continue to be caught in the crossfire of war. This includes our concern for the lives of innocent Palestinians. We are incredibly grateful for the steadfast leadership of President Biden, who today made history as the first U.S. president to visit Israel during wartime, as well as that of Democrats, starting with leaders Schumer and Jeffries, and including Congresswoman Manning and Wasserman Schultz, whose commitment to the U.S.-Israel relationship has been unequivocal. JDCA will continue to host weekly events as part of this Crisis in Israel series. You can mark your calendars now for next week's event. Same time, same place, maybe different Zoom link, same voice and political home of Jewish voters in support of Democrats who share our values. I'd now like to turn it over to JDCA board member and programming committee vice chair, Jill Goldenberg, to introduce Senator Schumer. Jill, over to you.
Thanks, Haley. Today, as President Biden visits Israel to express American solidarity and support, providing light to the Israeli people and to all those suffering at the hands of Hamas, we are honored to be joined by Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, who, as many of you know, just returned on Monday from his own visit to Israel, stressing that the United States has Israel's back. Senator Schumer is not only the first Jewish Senate Majority Leader, he is the highest ranking Jewish government official ever in American history. Throughout his career, Senator Schumer has been a tireless advocate for Israel and the Jewish community. As Jewish Dems, we are incredibly proud of his leadership and proud to call him one of our own. Senator Schumer just met in Israel with Israeli leaders such as Prime Minister Netanyahu, President Herzog, Benny Gantz, and Yair Lapid. The War Cabinet is preparing to address Israel's vital security needs in the immediate aftermath of the worst single-day massacre of Jews since the Holocaust. Senator Schumer also visited with victims of Hamas's horrific attacks and, like all Israelis, spent some time in a bomb shelter. We look forward to hearing from Senator Schumer about his recent visit and about the efforts in the Senate to support and stand with Israel. In times like these, we are particularly grateful for leaders who share our values, like President Biden, and that are completely and wholly exemplified by our Senate Majority Leader.
Thanks, everybody, and thank you for caring so much. Look, this issue, I'm speaking, of course, to Jewish Democrats. Two attributes I share with you, that I'm Jewish and I'm a Democrat, but this issue is a bipartisan issue, and we're keeping it as bipartisan as possible. I just wanted to say that at the outset. Now, as many of you know, I had left to go to China on Thursday last week. We went to China, and then, of course, on Saturday, the horrible, outrageous terrorist attack on so many innocent Israelis, brutal, vicious, occurred. I did a little good in China, as you know. I confronted President Xi himself, who met with us, that China's statement initially about this did not mention terrorism, did not mention innocent victims, did not mention Hamas. And amazingly, I confronted him with this, and the next day they modified their statement. Not good enough for what I would like, but certainly a modification, which he never does. He also said to us in the meeting when I brought this up that he supports a two-state solution. I said, well, I hope you know, Mr. President, in all due respect, Hamas does not. They don't believe there should be any Jews in Israel. They want a Palestinian state between the Jordan and the Mediterranean. And if they had their way, they do to the Jews in the rest of Israel what they did to the Jews in Gaza, if you read some of their statements and what they believe in. I also asked him there to put pressure on Iran to not escalate the conflict, and he said that he would pass that along to them. But I couldn't stay there. Being the first Jewish majority leader, being the highest ranking Jewish elected official ever in America, I knew I had to leave. So we cut back our trip short, and I went to Israel with a bipartisan group on Saturday. Our mission was three. One, to show the Israelis that Americans stood up for them and were with them all the way. Israel was so shaken by what happened. And why was Hamas so vicious? Well, one of the reasons was they wanted to scare everybody. They wanted to make everyone so afraid of Hamas that everyone would isolate Israel, and even the Israelis would not fight back. That was a pure miscalculation on their part. But us going there and saying we stood with Israel meant so much. We're still hearing about it from everybody under the sun, how important it was. So that was issue number one, to say we stand by Israel. Second was to sit down with the leadership, and we met with everybody. We met, of course, with Prime Minister Netanyahu. We met with Mr. Gantz. We met with the defense minister. We met with President Herzog. You name it, we met with them. And we asked them what Israel needed. And needed, of course, on the military side, things like more stuff for air defense, for Iron Dome, stuff like 155 millimeter ammunition, stuff like JRAMs and things like that. We asked for, and we asked them what they needed on the humanitarian side. And because Israel, we told everybody we met that there's got to be, we cannot play by the rules of Hamas. We're much better than that. We have to play try to minimize civilian casualties on the Palestinian side and what they needed there. But we got a long list of everything they needed. And so far, our government is doing every single thing that Israel has asked. I have to say that President Biden has been just fabulous. I'm so glad he's there today, standing by Israel. Third, we wanted to show that support for Israel was bipartisan. And that's why of the four members I chose to go with me, two were Democrats and two were Republicans. Senator Rosen, who introduces herself as the only Jewish mother. I'm the only Jewish majority leader, but she's the only Jewish mother. Senator Kelly, who has a great military background, as well as Senator Romney and Senator Cassidy. And we were a great team together. And so we showed the bipartisanship. So we have three goals here as Israel. One is to eliminate the threat to Hamas. The idea that Hamas should remain in place, that there should be a ceasefire after everything they did, and is a very, very bad idea. If Hamas is left to its own devices, it'll repeat what it did last time. Second is to free the hostages. There are close to 200, some of them American. Let me tell you, we met with the families of the 12 of the families of hostages. There was not a dry eye in the house. We were openly weeping when they told us the stories of what happened and their anguish. I remember one mom said, every minute seems like a day. She's in such pain and suffering. Another of them said, I have to ask myself, would I rather my child be dead or in the hands of these vicious terrorists? Can you imagine? And they showed us some videos, because Hamas, being as evil and vicious as it is, took some videos of them taking prisoners away, taking hostages away, even hurting some of them, shooting some of them. It was vicious and horrible. And it was amazing. And we said to the families, we would do everything we could. And yesterday, before President Biden left, The five of us were on the phone with the president talking about how we could help with the hostages. The U.S. is working very diligently there through other countries and doing everything it could. We also experienced the danger that every Israeli faces. We were having lunch at a hotel in Tel Aviv, far away from Gaza. And of course, we were rushed to a shelter because the missiles were overhead, sent by Hamas from Gaza to Tel Aviv. And of course, thank God we were okay. And the stories we heard about Be'eri, the kibbutz, where 100 Jews were members of the kibbutz were herded into the rec room, aged from the elderly to little tiny children and tots, and then they machine gunned every one of them down. And it reminded me of my family story. Most of us who are Jewish have, you know, this so hurts our souls. My great-grandmother was a leading citizen of the town of Chortkiv in what was then called Galicia, now Western Ukraine. The Nazis came into the town, ordered the Jews of Chortkiv to gather in the town square, told my grandmother, whose husband had been a famous rabbi, he was deceased, to gather her family on the porch. She did, her greater family. She gathered approximately 35 people from ages 88 to 3 months. They said, come with us. She said, we're not going. And they machine gunned every one of them down. So when I heard the story of Be'eri, it reminded me, of course, again, of something I've thought about. So October 7th is going to be a day that will live in infamy. In my role as majority leader, I am going to get the largest, best, quickest package to help Israel with military aid, intelligence aid, diplomatic aid, and humanitarian aid to Israel. And probably, by the way, as you've heard, speaking of humanitarian, and we regret the loss of any life, any innocent life. Now there's proof put out by the Israelis that the rocket, of course, was not from the from Israel, but rather was from one of the Palestinian groups that works with Hamas. And this is what Israel's up against. Israel didn't put out a statement immediately because they were checking it. They wanted the truth. Hamas immediately said, oh, the IDF did it. They lie through their teeth. And, you know, for 6 hours, the world blamed Israel unfairly. Now the word is getting out, and I think all of us have an obligation to get that proof out that the IDF showed about that. But in any case, we're going to get the biggest aid package we can. I'm in sync with Leader McConnell. People will say, well, what about the House? The House is sort of a mess. But our view is if we can get a strong bipartisan package of aid on the Senate floor and it passes by a large number of votes, it's going to put real pressure on the House, whatever their situation is. I think they're voting now, again, for a speaker. But whether they have a speaker or not, there are ways that they could get this done, and we're going to put as much pressure on them by passing a big bipartisan package as we can. Leader McConnell and I are working closely together on this, so this is important. So that's the bottom line. Let me just conclude by telling you a little bit about my father, which you'll see its relevance. My father had a tough life, but he taught me that he was an exterminator, never was able to go to college or make much of himself economically, but he was a fine, wonderful man. And he passed away a couple of years ago, almost a couple of years ago. In November, it'll be 2 years. But he left me with values. One value, always help people who need help, which I always try to do in my elected life. Number 2 value, he told me that if you're doing something important, look in your heart, make sure it's the right thing to do. And then persist and persist and persist, and God will reward you and you will succeed. Together, we will persist and will persist and persist. And we will make sure that Israel eliminates the threat to Hamas, does everything it can to get the hostages out, does everything it can in a very, very difficult job to minimize innocent civilians who are hurt in this, whether they be Palestinian or Israeli. Making sure, of course, whatever aid we give, the humanitarian aid, does not end up in Hamas's hands. But if we persist, we'll succeed. So to my fellow Jewish Democrats, remember, whether it's in America or in Israel, Am Yisrael Chai, people Israel live. Thank you. Hatzlacha, continued success.
Thanks to Senator Schumer for joining us on such a momentous week on the heels of his trip to Israel, and as President Biden is there right now. I want to thank him and his staff, as well as the Jewish Dem staff, for helping to put this together. And I'd like to hand it over to the policy committee chairman, my friend Tom Kahn. He and I served on the Hill together. Me for Senator Chuck Schumer, and him for the various chairmen of the House Budget Committees over the years. Tom is a true policy wonk and expert, and we're glad to have him on the JDCA board with us. So, Tom, off to you.
Thank you very much, Izzy, and thank you to all of you for joining us. First of all, I just wanted to convey a message from Leader Jeffries. He told me just about 10 minutes ago he was so deeply sorry, sincerely sorry, because he really, really, really wanted to be with us. He changed his schedule in order to do so, but he literally needs to be sitting in the chair on the House floor because they are voting right now for Speaker. But let me just say one other thing. I've known him, and we've been friends for more than a decade. I worked on the Hill for 33 years. I have never seen a member of Congress who cares more about the state of Israel and about the Jewish people than Hakeem Jeffries, barring none. Secondly, I would just want to say that, and the message that he wanted to deliver to us today was very simple. Israel, Jewish people, I've got your back. He is shoulder to shoulder with us, stands side by side, and he said, whatever it takes, I am there. That's number one. The second thing, I just want to provide a little bit of context about what's happening on the House floor. Bear one thing in mind. The MAGA Republicans and Donald Trump now control the House of Representatives because it's the MAGA Republicans who are now dictating who is going to be Speaker. And as a result, there is no bill that is going to pass the House that supports Israel. Nothing is happening. And as the chairman of the Republican chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee said, our enemies are smiling as they watch what's happening. Now with that, I think, am I supposed to turn this over to Lauren Baer? Haley's shaking her head. So then I think I turn it over to our chairman, Ron Klein. Mr. Chairman, I yield to you as much time as you may consume.
Thank you, Tom. Tom was one of my mentors when I was in the House of Representatives, and a great leader in the Jewish community and our Democratic community. It looks like they are in the middle of their roll call. Obviously, Congressman Leader Jeffries is on the floor, as well as our other special guests, Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Kathy Manning. They will be obligated to be on the floor. It's a roll call vote, which is very unusual as opposed to what we usually use as the electronic board, where you drop your card into an electronic panel and it automatically records the vote. They're going one by one, and there's 435 votes. They're about a third done right now, so they're not going to be done for a bit. So just want to really quickly acknowledge our good friends, Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who was actually in Israel. She was in Saudi Arabia when this attack took place, and then flew to Israel, again with a bipartisan group of members, to express her solidarity and support. She's been an amazing member for many, many years on Israel issues and Jewish community issues as well. Good friend to all of us. And we've invited her, obviously, to attend today to share with us what she had experienced there. But since it looks like she's going to be tied up, along with Congresswoman Manning, who is also, again, a great supporter of Israel from North Carolina, and has been since she got elected, she's been a stellar spokesperson, traveling to Israel multiple times, building bipartisan coalitions with her class of newer members that have less experience with Israel. It's a very important part. Most, believe it or not, most members of Congress do not have a lot of Jews in their community, or they're familiar with things other than just may hear about funding issues. So people like Kathy Manning have just taken upon themselves to educate members from all over the United States about the importance of the strategic relationship with the state of Israel. And we thank her for that. And she was going to, of course, share her thoughts as well today. But it looks like both of them are on the floor. And so I think what we're going to do is I'm going to turn it over to Haley for some closing remarks, and then we will obviously have these folks back next week. So Haley, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Ron. And thanks to the hundreds of you, over 600 who joined us today. It is unfortunate that we were not able to have our House members with us, but the good news is that we do have another briefing scheduled. Mark your calendars for noon next Wednesday. We have Senator Jackie Rosen confirmed, and hopefully we'll have some of our House members join us at that time as well, unless, of course, there's another speaker vote. Since it doesn't seem that they have the votes to elect a new speaker. We want to thank all of you. We know these are very difficult times as we all grapple with what is happening in Israel and our deep concern. We are comforted today, not only by the leadership of President Biden, the first U.S. president to travel to Israel during wartime, but also by our leaders in Congress, including Senate Majority Leader Schumer, whose words were deeply meaningful. Today, as we speak in Israel, President Biden has been there to express his solidarity with the Israeli people and his commitment for the United States to continue to do whatever we can to stand with Israel. As this crisis continues to unfold, JDCA will continue to do everything we can to so proudly represent Jewish voters as the political home and voice of Jewish voters in support of Democrats who share our values. Our role as an organization and as a community is more vital than ever. We are a source of information, opportunities to take action, and a community for all of you. And that is why we will convene again next week, same time, same place. As Democrats continue to demonstrate leadership, they are meeting this pivotal moment, and we are so grateful. We encourage each of you to join our efforts to ensure that Democrats continue to be elected. To stay involved, please visit jewishdems.org, where you can sign up to join our email list to learn about upcoming briefings and to join our important election-related efforts. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us this afternoon. Thank you to Senate Majority Leader Schumer for addressing us today. Again, our apologies that our House members were unable to join, but we look forward to seeing all of you next week at noon with Senator Rosen and others, and we'll keep you updated on the details regarding that briefing. Thank you.